Deep out in a sleepy, broken-down corner of the South, where the night fell heavy and the crows knew everybody's business, folks started whispering about someone they called the man who never was. The village, Hollow Creek, was the kind of place where the streetlights buzzed louder than the people, where the cracked porches leaned like old men tired of standing. Life moved slow there until he showed up. At first, nobody saw him clear, just shadows stretching wrong at midnight, footprints in the mud that didn't match no boots, dogs howling at empty fields like they could sense something walking but couldn't see it. Folks said a tall silhouette drifted past the abandoned barn near the tree line. Others said he moved like fog, there one second, gone the next. People in Hollow Creek liked to talk big, but this rumor felt different. Even Miss Loretta, who ran the corner store and never feared nothing, locked her door twice and kept the lights low. She told people a strange chill slid under her skin whenever she passed the old well at the center of town. "Baby," she said in her thick, smooth voice, "ain't no regular man bringing a cold like that. That's something else." Kids started betting each other to walk past the woods after sundown. Nobody made it far. They all came running back, swearing they heard a low whisper floating through the trees, like someone saying their name real slow. And then came the night everything truly changed. A boy named Jaden, bold but broke, the type with too much pride and too little sense, claimed he was gonna get proof. "Man, y'all scared of shadows," he said, leaning back like a king with something to prove. "I'ma go see him. I'ma bring back something real. When I do, all y'all gonna stop acting like kids." Nobody thought he'd go, but when the sun dipped and the frogs started croaking, Jaden walked straight toward the woods with nothing but his phone light and a cheap jacket. His friends begged him not to, but pride is louder than fear, until fear gets close enough to touch. He disappeared into the tree line, and the forest swallowed him whole. Minutes passed, then an hour. No call, no shout, no footsteps running back. Just silence thick enough to choke on. When Jaden finally stumbled out, face pale, eyes wide like he'd seen the end of the world, he didn't talk, not at first. His body shook like a leaf in a hurricane. Folks crowded round him, asking what he saw, begging him to say something. But Jaden only whispered 4 trembling words. "He ain't from here." The village went quiet. Rumors turned into fear. Fear turned into dread. And from that night on, nobody in Hollow Creek slept easy. Because if Jaden was right, the man who never was had finally arrived. Jaden didn't speak much that night, but the way he stared at the dirt like something was crawling under it kept folks from sleeping. His mama kept him inside, shut the curtains, and prayed over him. But Hollow Creek had already changed. A strange tension settled over the place, a dead weight hanging in the air like storm clouds that refused to break. The next morning, Sheriff Darnell, big man, older, always smelt like coffee and frustration, came knocking. He wanted answers. Jaden just sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, hands still shaking. "Son, you gotta tell me what you saw. Folks out here spooked real bad." Jaden swallowed hard. His voice came out scratchy like he hadn't used it in years. "It was dark, real dark. But I knew something was moving between the trees, not walking, just sliding like it didn't need the ground." His mama crossed herself. Sheriff Darnell frowned. "It could be an animal." Jaden snapped his head up. "Animals don't whisper your name." That shut the room down. Meanwhile, Hollow Creek kept buzzing like a kicked beehive. Stories poured in from every direction. Miss Loretta swore she saw a shadow leaning against her store window, tall and thin as a telephone pole. Old Man Rivers said his porch swing started rocking on its own.
creaking like someone heavy was sitting in it, and little Carmen swore she heard someone humming right outside her window, soft, slow, and way too close. Still, nobody had seen him clearly, not until the night Hollow Creek's power went out. It started with a flicker, a buzz, then bam, everything dropped into darkness. Street lamps died, houses went black, even the moon felt dimmer somehow, like it was trying to hide. People stepped outside with candles and flashlights, confused, annoyed, until they noticed the silence. No crickets, no frogs, no wind stirring the trees, just quiet, too quiet. Then someone screamed. It came from the north edge of the village, near the old Carter house, the place folks said was cursed since the fire 20 years back. Sheriff Darnell rushed over with his light, a cluster of neighbors following behind him like frightened sheep. There on the porch, Mrs. Carter pointed a trembling finger toward the field behind the house. "He's out there," she whispered. "He's just standing there watching." Everyone turned, and that's when they finally saw him. A tall figure at the edge of the field, perfectly still, shoulders narrow, limbs long, head tilted just a little, like he was studying them. No face, at least none they could make out in the dark. Just a smooth shape where features should have been, like a man made of shadows, holding itself together out of nothing. But the worst part, he didn't move when the lights hit him, didn't flinch, didn't shift, just stared. Then slowly, too slowly, his arm lifted, long fingers stretching toward him, like he was inviting someone to come closer. People backed away, some cried, some prayed, but Sheriff Darnell stood frozen, muttering, "Lord help us," because something about that figure wasn't human, wasn't natural, wasn't right, and deep inside they all knew the man who never was no rumor anymore.
Nobody dared breathe as the shadowy figure kept its long arm raised, like it was reaching for the whole trembling crowd. The darkness around him felt alive, thick, crawling, almost hungry. Mrs. Carter's flashlight flickered, and every time it dimmed, the figure seemed a little closer, even though nobody saw it move. "Back up," Sheriff Darnell whispered, voice cracking. "Everybody back up, slow." People stepped away, but their eyes stayed locked on that thing in the field. You couldn't look away. It was like the air around him pulled at your attention, dragging your gaze the way deep water pulls at your feet. Then, without warning, all the flashlights in the crowd blinked out at once. A sharp gasp ran through everyone. The darkness swallowed everything. That's when the whispering started. Not loud, not clear, just a soft murmur slipping through the night like breath against skin. Too close, too familiar. It spoke names, real names. Everyone swore they heard their own once. It drifted from every direction, making it impossible to tell where the man who never was actually stood. Someone screamed again, a deeper, rawer sound this time. When the lights flickered back on, Old Man Rivers was on the ground, clutching his chest, eyes wide in terror. "He touched me, cold, colder than death itself." But the shadow figure was gone. Just empty field, empty air, empty night. Sheriff Darnell helped Rivers up, hands shaking. "Everybody go home," he commanded, trying to sound in control. "Lock your door, stay inside." Nobody argued. Hollow Creek turned into a ghost town that night. Curtains stayed shut, lights stayed off, house doors clicked one after another like a row of dominoes falling. People whispered prayers into their pillows, hoping the dark wouldn't whisper back. But Jaden didn't sleep. He sat upright on his bed, eyes on the window, breath short and fast. He'd felt something in the woods, something reaching for him, pressing into his mind. And now, with the village swallowed in fear, he felt it again, stronger, closer.
He stood and walked to the window. Nothing but black outside. He leaned in, forehead almost touching the glass. Then a shape slid across his yard. Not walking, not stepping, just gliding, smooth and silent, the same way he saw it in the woods. The shadow stretched long and strange, and even without a clear face, Jaden knew exactly who it was. The man who never was had come for him. Jaden stumbled back, heart pounding, and then, soft as a breath, the whisper came again, right behind him. His body froze, neck stiff, skin cold. He didn't want to turn around, didn't want to see what was standing there. But the whisper grew sharper, like a finger drawing slow circles against his spine. Jaden. He finally turned, and what he saw wasn't a shadow anymore. It had shape, it had weight, it had presence, and it was close enough to touch. Jaden's scream never made it out of his throat. Jaden didn't remember falling. One second that thing was right in front of him, breath colder than winter stone, and the next he was lying on the floor, chest heaving, sweat running down his temples like he'd outrun a whole storm. But when he forced his eyes open, the room was empty. No shadow figure, no whisper, just the slow tick, tick, tick of the clock on his wall. Except the clock was frozen, 3:03 a.m., hands stuck like time itself refused to move. Jaden pushed himself up, legs trembling. Every part of him wanted to run to his mama's room, but something told him not to wake her, not yet. Hollow Creek felt watched, not by one pair of eyes, by dozens, hundreds, like the whole night had turned into a living thing that leaned in closer each time someone breathed too loud. Across town, Sheriff Darnell couldn't sleep either. He sat at his kitchen table with a cup of cold coffee, pistol holstered at his hip, eyes fixed on the dark window. He wasn't a man who scared easy. He'd seen hurricanes, violence, loss, but this was different. Whatever was in Hollow Creek didn't break doors or leave tracks. It broke nerves. It crawled into minds. His radio crackled. First just static, then another sound, soft, slow, like breathing. "Dispatch, you copy?" he asked, leaning forward. No answer. Only the soft inhale and exhale as something listening. Then a voice, thin as wind through dry grass, whispered into the radio. "Sheriff, open your door." He dropped the radio so fast it clattered across the table. His heart thumped against his ribs like it wanted out. He stood, reached for the light switch, and froze halfway. A silhouette was standing on his porch. Tall, still, head tilted, watching him through the glass. Darnell stepped back. His hand hovered near his gun, but he didn't pull it. Some instinct, deep, old, primal, told him a bullet wouldn't mean anything to the kind of thing standing outside. The porch light flickered, once, twice, then washed the figure in a dim, sick yellow glow. It wasn't solid. It wasn't human. Its edges moved like smoke trying to remember how to be a person. Darnell stumbled back so hard the chair tipped over behind him. He kept his eyes locked on the door, terrified that if he blinked, the thing would be inside, standing behind him. But before he could even breathe, the figure vanished. Not walked away, not faded, just gone like someone erased it with one quick swipe. Darnell grabbed his keys, his radio, and bolted out to his car. If someone was in real danger, he needed answers, and Jaden was the only one who'd seen the thing up close. He sped through the silent streets, tires crunching over gravel. Hollow Creek's houses passed by like darkened tombs. No lights, no movement, just a village holding its breath. When he reached Jaden's place, the front door was wide open. "Jaden," he called, stepping slowly inside. The house was silent, except for a soft, steady hum from upstairs, a humming tune he didn't recognize, a tune no human voice would make, too smooth, too hollow, too cold. Darnell tightened his jaw, raised his flashlight, and climbed the stairs. Each step creaked like it was begging him to stop. The humming grew louder, closer. Wrong. He reached Jaden's bedroom door, pushed it open, and froze. Jaden sat on the edge of the bed, eyes empty, pupils blown wide like he was staring at something far away. His lips moved, whispering words Darnell couldn't understand, words that didn't sound English or human. And standing behind him, leaned close to his ear, was the man who never was. He slowly lifted his head toward the sheriff. No face, just darkness, but somehow a smile. Darnell couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think, because he finally understood what Hollow Creek had let in, and it wasn't a man at all.
Sheriff Darnell stood frozen in Jaden's doorway, flashlight trembling in his hand. The room felt colder than a winter grave, the kind of cold that didn't just sit on your skin, it seeped into your bones. Jaden kept whispering those strange, broken sounds, his voice thin and empty, like he wasn't speaking for himself anymore. The figure behind him, tall, stretched, made of shadows that slid instead of moved, leaned closer, as if listening through Jaden's mind. The sheriff felt pressure in his skull, a slow throb, like the creature's presence alone twisted the air. "Jaden," Darnell whispered, barely breathing. "Son, look at me." Jaden didn't blink, didn't flinch, didn't move. The creature tilted its head the same unnatural angle it held the first night in the field, as if trying to understand what a human sheriff was. It lifted a long, dark hand and rested it lightly on Jaden's shoulder. Jaden's whispering stopped instantly. His eyes snapped toward Darnell, wide, terrified, pleading. That was the first moment the sheriff realized the boy was still in there somewhere, trapped. Darnell reached for his gun, not because he thought it would help, but because fear makes a man desperate. The second the gun lifted, the shadow figure drifted forward, crossing half the room in a blink. No footsteps, no sound, just sudden, suffocating closeness. The sheriff's vision blurred, his ears rang, his thoughts jumbled like broken radio static. And then the whisper hit him. Not outside, not in the room, inside his head. "You invited me." Darnell staggered back, hand slipping off the gun. No, I didn't let you in." "You believed," the voice inside him murmured. "Fear opens every door." The sheriff tried to speak, but the creature pressed its darkness into him, like cold fingers slipping under his skin, and suddenly he was reliving every fear he'd ever buried, every mistake, every loss, all at once. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't stand. The shadow leaned in closer, face inches from his, though it had no features, just depthless blackness that felt like falling. Then Jaden's voice cut through the nightmare, a raw, desperate shout. "Stop!" Jaden lunged forward, breaking the creature's grip for a split second. That moment was enough. Darnell hit the floor, gasping, pulling himself away inch by inch. Jaden stumbled back too, clutching his head like someone was tearing through his memories. The shadowy figure turned to Jaden again, movement smooth and patient, like it knew the village now belonged to it, like this was all just the beginning. Jaden squeezed his eyes shut. "You're not real," he whispered. The shadow leaned close. "I'm more real than you." And then, like smoke pulled into a vent, it vanished. The room warmed instantly, the air loosening like a tight fist finally unclenched. Jaden collapsed onto the bed, shaking. Sheriff Darnell dragged himself upright, gripping the doorframe to stay standing. Both of them sat in silence for what felt like years. Finally, Jaden whispered, voice hoarse, "Sheriff, he ain't done. He ain't leaving." Darnell's jaw clenched. He stared down the dark hallway, feeling every hair on his arms rise. "No," he said quietly, "he's not." Outside, Hollow Creek was silent, too silent. The kind of silence that meant something unnatural was watching, waiting, thinking. The man who never was nowhere in sight, but everyone in that village felt him, and from that night forward, Hollow Creek never truly slept again.